You're a troublemaker. You ain't nothing but a troublemaker, girl.
You had me hooked again from the minute you sat down. The way you bite your lip got my head spinning around. After a drink or two, I was putty in your hands. I don't know if I'll have the strength to stay.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there, and welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour. Hello, once again, how is everybody doing on this fine Thursday morning? I myself am doing very fine. Thanks again for listening. I, of course, as usual, am your host, your DJ, Mike Horvath, and thanks for listening. Once again, we're coming to you live on this very beautiful Thursday morning, very chilly actually, Thursday morning, November 20th, week until Thanksgiving 2014. Once again, coming to you live from the Ybor City campus of Hillsborough Community College on HCC's Hawk Radio, WMNF Tampa 88.5 HD4 for a special hour-long celebration of, as usual, as we've done in the past, of the many well-known and popular movies, music, and TV shows and other entertainment venues in general. Of course, each week focusing on a particular theme. Of course, today in particular, as promised from the week prior, will be just an hour-long look and just an hour-long taste of some of the most well-known Thanksgiving-themed films and TV shows of the past century, of course. Thanksgiving films and TV shows, which, as today's show will prove, believe it or not, they really do exist. There really are a couple of well-known movies out there that have become just classic films with both audiences and critics alike. Although Thanksgiving holiday films may not seem as popular in comparison, as we've mentioned on the previous week's show with, for instance, Halloween-themed movies or TV shows where you can find about like a million, suspense-themed or slasher-themed, like a horror subgenre films, or in comparison to, for instance, Christmas movies or songs where you can find just about a million holiday specials out there with a Christmas theme. But yeah, believe it or not, we're going to take a look, bring to you some of the most pretty well-known movies and TV shows, in fact, that are come from that actually were produced with a Thanksgiving theme, that we're going to take a look at them, as well as a taste of some of the music, some of the theme songs that have inspired them in just a few minutes to come. Really looking forward to that. Once again, it's that time again on Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour, being request time. Actually, as for today, our show, we have no requests. However, once again, that doesn't mean that we won't have any for our next show. Once again, if you ever have just a favorite movie of yours, a particular movie, or even a song, even if it does not relate to a movie that you like to hear played on the show, or as well as anything you like to hear discussed, a movie, once again, or a TV show, just please feel free to contact me at mhorvath5@hccfl.edu. Again, mhorvath5@hawkmail.hccfl.edu. Also, you can also feel free to contact us on our brand new Facebook page, which it just came into existence at the end of October. Our new Facebook page, you can contact me, just send us an email or a message on Facebook. It's the Facebook page for Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour. If any particular requests you'd like to hear, we'll feel free to play them on our next week's show, or discuss any movies, any favorites you'd like to hear discussed. Once again, just feel free to once again, you can either email or contact us on Facebook. And just feel free to, if you wish to like our page. And in comparison, so as I mentioned, going back to our theme today of Thanksgiving films or TV shows in particular. Now, of course, Thanksgiving, relating to the holiday of Thanksgiving in particular, which it falls this year in just a week from today, actually, on November 28 or 27, November 27, 2014. It's really just one of those holidays out there, which has been really a genuine American celebration among our culture. It's a holiday. It's in particular that actually its existence predates. Very interesting to note. Many of a handful of other well-known like American holidays, federal holidays, and celebrations such as Memorial Day and Labor Day, even or Veterans Day, even Independence Day predates by about a century. Of course, we all know the story out there of the first Thanksgiving relating to the Pilgrims and the Indians of that sort. And it's really just a really great theme, sort of a message of giving thanks, which still carries on into the current celebration of the holiday today, which relating to just a really special time of the year that along with not a lot, just maybe 2 or 3 other holidays. It's that are just those few days of the year where all of us, whether we have family members coming to visit us at home or just the opposite, or traveling across the country or even internationally to join other family members out there for just this special day of the year when we all join together and just engage in a really special social time by having traditionally, of course, Thanksgiving dinner with, of course, the turkey, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, like whichever type of, side orders, side meals that you have at your Thanksgiving dinner in particular. A few of those being the classics, which myself in particular, we always have to have every year on Thanksgiving. Many of them we actually only cook that one special day of the year on Thanksgiving. And whatever your holiday traditions may be, for some people it could be viewing just the Thanksgiving parade on TV, or even just taking part in watching the many football games, both the college games and the NFL games in particular on TV later in the day after you've been stuffed with all that turkey, of course, on TV, or even heading on into Thanksgiving weekend into Black Friday, watching even more games and filling up on the leftovers. Of course, so yeah, in that regard, it's just a very special time of the year for giving thanks to be with friends and relatives in particular. Some of the TV specials and films and even some songs we're going to take a look at really carry on that theme in particular. So at this point, we're going to jump right into it. As I mentioned, although it may be hard to believe, once again, there really are some important, just well-known movies out there that have carried with them a Thanksgiving setting or a Thanksgiving theme. The first one we're going to take a look at today, as well as some of the very distinctive songs that have come along with its soundtrack, it's a film from 1987 by the name of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, starring Steve Martin and John Candy. We previously, a few weeks ago, back on a show, well, actually, at this point, a few months ago, back in September, we took a look at some of the work of the late filmmaker John Hughes. And John Hughes, as I mentioned back in that show on the middle of September, was a filmmaker who is very well known for producing many movies focusing on the storyline of both teen angst, comedy, and dramas. Many of them in particular, we took a look at that show, including 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. However, at this point in his career, at the point when filmmaker John Hughes produced and directed Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it's very interesting at the time of its release, because it was a film in which Hughes had actually made the decision to move on and sort of expand his filmmaking abilities beyond creating films of the purely the teen angst storyline, focusing on just these teenage protagonists going through high school related issues, to instead producing a comedy focusing on two adults facing more like adult themed issues. With this film in particular, Of course, in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it's a film that, as I mentioned, it stars Steve Martin as this wealthy corporate businessman by the name of Neil Page, who is tasked with just a race against the clock to travel home from a business meeting in New York City, home to his family on Thanksgiving Day, leaving on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving with just 2 days left until the holiday. Along the way, even before leaving New York City, however, Page runs into just this loner shower curtain ring salesman by the name of Del Griffith, portrayed in the film by John Candy, who he inadvertently becomes stuck with on their journey home to Chicago within 2 days. As the title implies, along their journey, the two men just face a very just a series of really bombastic escapades with a variety of transportation methods that, of course, go awry. The first being attempting just to fly home to Chicago on an airplane, which is eventually deterred into the Midwest due to a snowstorm. Moving on, they attempt to board a train to get home to Chicago, to the ongoing bad luck of Steve Martin's character breaks down. Now instead leading them to attempt to take a bus back to Chicago, which does not go, just to travel all the way to the city, leading them to once again now be faced with a rental car, which Steve Martin is forced to share with John Candy, which ends up burning down. By the film's conclusion, they end up finding just the last transportation method possible by riding in the back of a meat truck for the remaining distance to get home to, of course, Neil Page's Thanksgiving dinner in Chicago. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, as I mentioned, it's at the time of its release, it was considered to be a very, very popular film, considered by just many film scholars to be among the funniest comedies of all time ever produced. And it was also a film that made use of just several distinctive songs and pieces of score music in its soundtrack, some of which we're going to take a look at right now, actually, at this point. In particular, the film, it made just the great usage of, and its finale, it was a newly redone version of Every Time You Go Away, a song written by Daryl Hall and performed by Paul Young in 1985. As I mentioned, that featured just a newly redone version of the song for the film's release. It was played at the film's very last ending scene, in which Neil Page, Steve Martin's character, finally makes it home into his house for Thanksgiving dinner and introduces family to Candy's character. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film. Sorry about that. But it's a film I really do recommend checking out around around this week in particular, just a week until Thanksgiving. But anyway, just going back to the song in particular, at this point we're going to actually play the original version of the song of Every Time You Go Away, performed by Paul Young from 1985. Here it is. I'd like you to take a listen to, once again, the original version written by Daryl Hall, performed by Paul Young in 1985. As I mentioned, a newly redone version at the time was performed and was played in the finale of the 1987 film Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And here it is. Have a listen.
Hey, if we can solve any problem, means to me. I can't go on saying the same thing. 'Cause can't you see we got everything, baby, even though you know every time you go away, yeah, you take a piece of me with you. Oh, every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you. Can't go on saying the same thing. 'Cause baby, can't you see we got everything going on, on. Every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you. Every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you. Every time you go away, you take a piece of me. Every time you go away, that I rock you so all the way to every time you go away.
So yes, as that song fades out, once again, that's the original version of Every Time You Go Away, written by Daryl Hall, performed by Paul Young. As I mentioned, played in the final scene of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, released in 1987. Relating back to that film in particular, it's there's just a few other songs that I'd like you to take a look at that formed part of the film soundtrack that have been become very well known and defined with being from this film in particular. Just really another interesting piece of behind-the-scenes info relating to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was the fact that the filmmaker John Hughes, he was being quoted as saying that many of his films were just based on actually real-life experiences that he had previously that in his life that he actually ended up adapting and down to paper as the screenplays for many of his motion pictures. Of course, John Hughes also being well known for writing the screenplay for a majority of his own motion pictures, which he either directed or produced. And for instance, among them for other films such as, for instance, the first film, National Lampoon's Vacation series, being, of course, National Lampoon's Vacation, released earlier in 1983. For which that Hughes was well known for getting his was considered to be his big break in the film industry. That screenplay he was said to be based on just a real life family vacation that he had with family members when he was a kid in his youth, and just relating back to that, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles in particular was another film that he was said to have based on another real life experience. This time being and another event from earlier in his life, in which he was actually hoping to get home in time for his family for Thanksgiving just 2 days before, but wound up being caught up, being held up in his efforts to get home, and not getting home until 2 days later. Also in real life, this experience happening when he was attempting to get home to his family in Chicago from New York City. And another interesting fact to point out with this film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, was it was just another film that I just saw the beginning of a filmmaking relationship between Hughes and actor John Candy. Of course, this was a film that saw Candy in the starring role alongside Steve Martin. And later on, following the release of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Hughes would later cast Candy again in several of his following films, which he either produced or directed, including Uncle Buck, which was released just a year or two after the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, as well as in a supporting role, a small role in Home Alone, the first Home Alone, released in 1990, as well as The Great Outdoors, which also starred Dan Aykroyd, released also in the late 80s. And also among them, relating to going back to the music featured in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, another well-known song which has gone along with the film's rather unique soundtrack, which with a rather unusual selection of songs in particular, was just a new, just a 1980s rendition of the Red River Rock. It was originally composed in 1959 by Johnny and the Hurricanes, a song which in tune was actually adapted from the classic folk song of the Red River Valley, excuse me. This version was the version used in the film, which was actually redone, a piece of the Red River Rock from 1959 that was recomposed with an electric music style by the 80s group Silicon Teens in 1987 for the film's release. It was actually a piece of music which was played in several notable areas throughout the film. It was actually, as a matter of fact, it was actually sung by both Steve Martin and John Candy's characters in a scene which took place towards the end of the film. In particular, we're going to take a look at this song. At this point, as I mentioned, it was a recomposed version of Red River Rock performed by the Silicon Teens. Was a redone version of the original song, originally performed by Johnny and the Hurricanes in 1959. Here it is. Take a listen. As that song fades out, once again, that is Red River Rock originally performed in 1959 by Johnny and the Hurricanes, that being a new electronic composed version written and performed by Silicon Teens for the 1987 film Planes, Trains, and Automobiles once again. Now, if anyone's just joining us at this point on the show on HCC's Hawk Radio, once again, you're listening to Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour, hosted by your DJ Mike Horvath, just yours truly speaking right now, and we're having a discussion of Thanksgiving-related films. At this point, we're Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is the film we're discussing right now at this point. And going back to the choices of music, there's one last song from this film in particular I'd like you guys to take a look at out there. It's actually in contrast to just the previous song of the Red River Rock, this piece of music being just a much more like an introspective and sort of a somber piece of score music coming from the film, of course, played during the much more more sort of emotional and slower parts of the film, including in particular a scene towards the end of the film in which the Steve Martin's character finally is shown to open up to John Candy's character by inviting him into a shelter to spend the night in his hotel room rather than out in the middle of a snowy night outside of their motel. This one being the title of this piece of music. It was once again another piece of music that was composed for usage in the film, I believe, with the title of Magellani or Lost in Your Eyes, performed by it was the group The Book of Love, written and performed by Jade Lee and also Susan Ottaviano and Theodore Ottaviano. It was this one version that you're going to take a look at. However, this is actually an instrumental version of the song that was performed, that was played in several areas in the film. As I mentioned, it's in contrast to Red River Rock. This piece of music used in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles being carrying with it much more like a thoughtful and just a more somber tone to it. Sort of similar to the usage of Every Time You Go Away, played in the film's finale. Here it is once again. This is Magellani, Lost in Your Eyes, played in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles once again. Here it is. Take a listen. that song fades once again. That was Magellani, Lost in Your Eyes, performed here by the Book of Love, and the instrumental version, which you just heard, being played in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Now at this point, just moving away from that film, from actually the movie theatrical medium in general, and I'm moving on to just another entertainment venue, being the television industry, with our next piece of Thanksgiving related media we're going to take a look at is Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. It was special for the Peanuts franchise, originally released in 1973. Was a television special produced, as were the other Peanuts TV holiday specials by the creator Charles M. Schultz. And now the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, as I mentioned, it was a TV special just starring the characters of Peanuts, including the protagonist Charlie Brown, as well as Linus, Lucy, and Schroeder, Snoopy, of course, his dog, and many of the other famous characters coming from both the comic strip as well as its television, its animated series adaptation. This one being very interesting because, well, just relating to what we had previously talked about at the beginning of our show. Like if you weren't there for the beginning of our show, you're about to hear sort of a rehash of this right now, is just relating to the fact that about how Thanksgiving-related films and TV shows are just a rather more either like unknown or more scarce in comparison to films relating to other holiday themes, including sort of the Christmas holiday-themed films and, of course, Halloween-themed horror films. Just in particular, going back to and relating to that, it's very interesting to note that Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, even to this day, although it's just not entirely unknown to many people, but it's very interesting to note that it's just sort of critiquing the Peanuts television specials in particular. The Thanksgiving one, A Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, is a TV show or TV special that, in comparison to many of the earlier Peanuts holiday specials, including many of those released in the 1960s, including two of the most well-known ones relating back to, as we previously discussed, among them, it's The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, as well as the Charlie Brown Christmas, and a few others, which were very well-known and still played around those holidays in particular. Nowadays, the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is just one of their specials, which is just even to this day considered to be really not as well-known and as celebrated as many of the others, as we previously mentioned, including The Great Pumpkin. Very interesting to note, however, though, that's, it's as I mentioned, it's not entirely unknown. However, just with the fact being it's a TV special, similar to the previous Halloween special produced by the late creator Charles Schultz. It's just a television special that's still played annually in the month of November on the ABC's television network. Around this time, around the weekend before Thanksgiving. And it's just a special, really interesting to note that it really demonstrates sort of the evolution, however, of this franchise in particular, of the Peanuts franchise, for instance, through the time span of a decade, moving from the 1960s into the early 1970s, was a special that saw the introduction of several new characters to the franchise, including Peppermint Patty was one of them, as well as Woodstock, which was considered to be the bird, which was the dog Snoopy's sidekick. And in addition to that, it was also interesting to be considered to be the first and only television special which musical artist Vince Guaraldi, known as the composer for many of the Peanuts television specials and episodes in particular. Charlie Brown Thanksgiving is notable for being, as I mentioned, the first and only time in which Guaraldi actually performed a vocal piece of music, a vocal song, which was actually integrated into the television special. This one being titled Little Birdie, written and performed by Giraldi, which focused on just the friendship between Snoopy and Woodstock, and a scene about halfway through the special in which Snoopy and Woodstock prepare this sort of outdoor picnic table for the Thanksgiving feast to come. Was a song just due to this really interesting distinction. I'd like you guys to take a look at it. As I mentioned, the song you're about to hear, it's Little Birdie, written and performed by Vince Guaraldi, known as the sort of the instrumental composer for many of the episodes of the Peanuts TV series and their holiday specials. This one being the first and only time of which, in which he actually sung and performed a vocal piece of music for a Peanuts special. So, well, here it is once again. Here's a Little Birdie, written and performed for the 1973 special Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. Here it is. Take a listen. Written and performed by Vince Guaraldi for the 1973 Peanuts special Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. A look at that one. At this point, we're going to just briefly move back into the just a movie sort of entertainment venue by taking a look at very interesting. This one being not so much a Thanksgiving themed film, but actually a Black Friday set film. Of course, being the well known as the craziest holiday shopping day of the year. This one being just a film, I think many of you might be familiar with Paul Blart Mall Cop. Released it was just 5 years prior in 2009. It was film that starred Kevin James as this just overzealous and also overweight security guard Paul Blart, employed at this at the West Orange Pavilion Mall in New Jersey, who just struggles with attempting to one day just break out of the sort of rent-a-cop industry and become an actual police officer. However, being bogged down by his issues with overeating and instead being stuck as employed in the security industry and just greatly becoming an annoyance and enforcing his roles to each and every guest shopping at his mall on his mall property. However, one day he's finally given the chance to prove himself, as the film's plot shows, on the day after Thanksgiving on a Black Friday, when just all of a sudden nearing closing time, his mall is overrun by just these a group of these renegade criminals just working from inside the mall on just a display as where they're employed as Santa's helpers at a holiday-themed, Christmas-themed display. And in the process, it's discovered that one of Paul Blart's fellow security guards is, in fact, the leader of this group, who attempt to just take many workers at the mall hostage, and in the process rob all the cash registers, all of the bank accounts located in the mall's many stores, with Paul Blart accidentally trapped inside the mall and now being forced to finally, as I mentioned, prove himself by taking on his believed fellow guard and his gang of thugs, and in the process save his mall as well as the many hostages, which include his daughter as well as his would-be girlfriend, who's employed at this the beauty salon stand in his mall. And Paul Blart Mall Cop, it's a film, although it's really interesting to know, although the film was absolutely hated by critics upon its release, the audiences showed a much different response. The film became just a very great box office success upon its release in early 2009. And its influence has shown due to the fact that a sequel is currently in production right now by the name of Paul Blart 2, with a scheduled release date in April of 2015 next year. Also seeing Kevin James reprise his role as Paul Blart in the starring role. We're going to take a look at really briefly, however, right now, just another well-known piece of music, a well-known song that was played during the sort of the lockdown scene of the film, in which the Paul Blart's mall is overtaken by this group of thugs while he is just distracted by these games within the arcade of his mall. The meantime, it's a song written and performed by, of course, the well-known rock group Kiss in 1976, Detroit Rock City. We're going to take just a brief little taste of at this point. The song Detroit Rock City, being written by Paul Stanley as well as Paul Isran. It was a scene coming from the scene in the film in which Paul Blart is distracted by performing to this song from the use of an arcade game, and not realizing his mall is in fact being taken over by this group of criminals. Once again, this is it's a very well-known Kiss song, Detroit Rock City, written and performed by the group in 1976 and written by Paul Stanley and Paul Isran. Here it is. moving along at this point, but once again, as that song fades out, once again, that's Detroit Rock City, written and performed by members of KISS, and played in a scene from the 2009 film Paul Blart Mall Cop, as I mentioned, Black Friday set film. Once again, this is Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour, hosted by yours truly, Mike Horvath. We're going to continue on with our theme of Thanksgiving-related media. As I mentioned, moving into the music industry right now, more or less. We mentioned at the beginning of our show, everyone has some sort of tradition that they still carry on to this day to Thanksgiving, at least in my opinion. Whether it's relating to, attached to the surroundings of Thanksgiving dinner, whether it's watching the many football games on TV, as well as the parade, New York City, or just some other medium, whatever it is. I know with me in particular, it's actually both of those, even as continued even to this day. And my family in particular, we always start Thanksgiving Day off by watching, of course, it's the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade from New York City in the morning. Followed by Thanksgiving dinner, followed by the many whatever football game is on TV, and it's actually carried on to actually the day ends with just an annual screening of Home Alone, the film from 1990. That's a motion picture we're going to take a look at next week, actually, with our theme from next week relating to the parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in particular. Features a very, very well-known and defining piece of theme music, a song for its main theme, which is the theme from New York, New York, that we're going to play at this point. It's a song that was actually originally performed for the film of the same name, the Martin Scorsese film of the same name, New York, New York, performed by Liza Minnelli in the film. This version we're going to take a look at, however, it's, in my opinion, a much more well-known version of the song performed by Frank Sinatra in 1980. So here it is. It's the theme from New York, New York, performed by Frank Sinatra. This version performed in 1980. Yeah, here it is.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. In a city that never sleeps and find I'm a number one, top of the list, king of the hill, a number one. These little town blues take it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York, New York.
Yes, that song fades out. The theme from New York, New York, performed by Frank Sinatra, originally written and performed for the film of the same name, released in 1977. We've reached the end of our show for today. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for listening to Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour. I'm your DJ, Mike Horvath. I'm going to be signing off in about a minute. Thank you for joining us for our hour-long celebration of the Thanksgiving holiday and the related films. Next week next week being the actual day of the annual Thanksgiving celebration, we will not have a show next week. When we come back 2 weeks from now, being our first official show in the month of December, just recognizing the annual holiday season. Our show in 2 weeks from today will be focused on an hour-long discussion of the many well-known Christmas movies and TV-related specials. Just among them, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, as well as some others such as White Christmas, Elf, and Home Alone, as well as some others, as well as the songs that have gone along with them. At this point, the last song you're going to hear for today before we go, just to get you into the mood for the holiday season that we're going to begin the celebration of in just 2 weeks from today. It's the original version of a very well-known Christmas song played throughout the holiday season. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Of course, performed by Andy Williams in 1963 and written by Edward Pola and George Wiley. Once again, this is Hollywood Michaels Entertainment Hour. I'm your DJ, Mike Horvath, signing off. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I hope you all have a great time next week. I know that I will. And here's the last song that you're going to hear before we go. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Here it is, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, with the kids jingle belling and everyone telling you be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the happiest season of all, with those holiday greetings and gay happy meetings when friends come to call. It's the happiest season of all. There'll be parties for hosting, marshmallows for toasting, and caroling out in the snow. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing when loved ones are near. It's the most wonderful time of the scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. It's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be much mistletoeing and hearts will be glowing when loved ones are near. It's the most wonderful time. Yes, the most wonderful time. Oh, the most wonderful time of the
feel so fine. I hope you hit me on my celly when I sneak in your mind. You a princess to the public, but a freak when it's time. Said you better be feeling lonely, so you sleeping in mine. Come and watch a movie with me. American Beauty or Bruce Almighty, that's groovy. Just come and move closer to me. I got some feelings for you. I'm not gonna get bored of, but baby, you an adventure, so let me come and explore you. Yeah.
Baby, you got me. I got a bad boy, I must admit it. You got my heart, don't know how you did it. And I don't care the taste of baby, but I wanna know the way I feel when you're next to me. I know the way, I know the way, I know the way. Baby, I know the way. Oh, I love the way. I love the way. I know the way. Baby, I love the way. Oh, I love the way. The way I love you. The way I love you. You, yeah, the way. I love the way you make me feel. I love it, I love it. I love the way you make me feel. I love it, the way I love you.
You're listening to Hawk Radio on WMNF Extra, WMNF Tampa 88.5 HD4.
I'm on that good 10 alcohol.
Mike Wilmer.
I got some down I can call. What's that? I don't know what I would do without y'all. I'm a ball to the day I fall.
Yeah, long as my love me.
Yeah, yeah,
I could give a fuck by no hate as long as my love me.
yeah.
Yeah, I could give a fuck by no nigga as long as these love me. Stop hating, little tone chick got that fire, and they so love me like Satan, man. Yeah, with me and get about it, and all she eat is. She's on a strict diet, that's my baby. With no makeup, she a 10, and she the best with that. Even better than Corinne. She don't want money, she want the time we could spend. She said, 'cause I really need somebody. So tell me you're that somebody, girl. I who I want and who I don't. Got that A1 credit at that filet mignon. She say, I never wanna make you mad, I just wanna make you proud. I say, baby, just make me, then don't make a sound.
I'm on that good 10 alcohol.
Yeah,
I got some down